Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
There's a saying I've carried in my heart for years. Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. But I've learned that character isn't just revealed in crisis. It's revealed in the little choices, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. If you want to know who someone really is, not the version they perform for the world, but their truest self, pay attention to these 5 things. If you really want to see the essence of a person, watch how they treat the ones who cannot do a single thing for them. Not the boss who signs their paycheck. Not the mentor who could open doors. Not the friend with connections. I'm talking about the waiter at the restaurant, the cashier at the store, the stranger holding the door open, the child tugging at their sleeve, the elderly woman struggling to cross the street, the people who, on paper, have nothing to offer, no power, no influence, no favors to return. That's where character comes to life, or it falls apart. Because kindness, when there's something to gain, isn't kindness at all. It's strategy. And strategy is easy to fake. But when you see someone lean into empathy with a person who is overlooked, ignored, or invisible to the world, that's not performance. That's their soul showing. I remember sitting in a coffee shop once and I watched a man, clearly in a hurry, expensive suit, important demeanor, snap at the young barista because his order wasn't perfect. His tone was sharp, demeaning, like the person behind the counter was beneath him. She smiled politely, apologized, and fixed it, but I could see her shoulders drop just a little. A small wound added to the weight of her day. 10 minutes later, another man walked in. His shoes weren't shiny, his jacket a little worn. He ordered his drink, and when the same barista handed it over, he looked her in the eyes and said, "Thank you for working so hard today. I know mornings get crazy here." She lit up. Her whole body shifted. That tiny moment of recognition restored a little dignity. The first man showed his ego. The second showed his heart. And you'd better believe that difference matters. The truth is, when people think no one is watching, or when they believe someone isn't important enough to deserve their full respect, that's when their real values surface. You don't have to have a degree in psychology to see it. Just notice, do they say, "Please," and "Thank you" to the waiter? Do they treat a janitor with the same respect as a CEO? Do they offer kindness to someone who may never be in a position to repay them? That's character. That's authenticity. I think part of why this matters so much is because at our core, we're all wired for dignity. Every single human being wants to be seen, heard, and valued. And when someone decides that certain people are worthy of respect and others are not, they're not just making a choice about manners. They're making a statement about how they see the world. Because if your respect is conditional, then it isn't real. I've seen this play out in leadership too. The most extraordinary leaders I've worked with are not the ones who command the loudest room or demand attention. They're the ones who know the names of the people cleaning the office after hours. They ask about their families. They say, "Thank you," and mean it, because they understand that every role, every person, every contribution matters. Leadership without humility is just power dressed up, and power without humility corrodes character. And maybe this is the hardest truth. Sometimes the way someone treats the least powerful is a preview of how they'll treat you one day, when the shine wears off, when you have nothing to give them. If they can belittle the waiter, they can belittle you. If they can discard someone once they've taken what they needed, they can discard you, too. It's not situational, it's who they are. But there's hope in this, too. Because the opposite is just as true. If someone is capable of compassion toward a stranger, if they can treat every human being with worth and value regardless of status, then you can trust that their kindness toward you isn't just flattery. It's who they are. I think we forget sometimes that life isn't made of grand gestures. It's made of 1,000 small moments. The thank you, the smile, the patience when someone is struggling, the choice not to belittle, not to roll your eyes, not to make someone feel less than. These are the stitches that make up the fabric of character. And if you want to know who someone is, you don't have to follow them for years. Sometimes you just have to watch them for a few minutes in line at the grocery store. And here's where it gets vulnerable. because I can't preach this without turning the mirror back on myself. There have been moments where I was tired, impatient, in a hurry, and I snapped at someone who didn't deserve it. Maybe it was the customer service rep on the phone or the clerk at the desk. And every single time afterward, I felt the sting of shame, because I knew better. I knew that my stress didn't give me the right to rob someone of dignity. So when I talk about noticing how people treat those who can't give them anything, I'm not just talking about them, I'm talking about me. About all of us. It's an invitation to pay attention not only to the people around us, but also to ourselves. What would change in the world if we lived as if dignity was not something to be earned, but something already belonging to every human being? Imagine if "thank you" became a habit, not an afterthought. Imagine if we measured success not by how high someone climbs, but by how many people they lift along the way. Character is not built in boardrooms. It's built in coffee shops, sidewalks, schools, airports, hospital waiting rooms, ordinary spaces filled with ordinary people who deserve extraordinary respect. And it's in those places where you see the truth of who someone is. Not in their speeches, not in their Instagram captions, not in the way they act when they're trying to impress you, but in how they speak to the person bagging their groceries, or whether they look a stranger in the eye, or whether they can extend kindness with nothing in return. At the end of the day, this isn't about perfection. None of us get it right every time. But character is in the pattern, not the exception. If someone consistently chooses empathy in the small things, you can trust that their big promises are rooted in truth. And if they consistently choose arrogance or dismissal in the small things, then no amount of charm in the big things can cover that up. So, the next time you want to know who someone really is, don't just listen to what they say about themselves. Watch the tiny, quiet moments, because that's where character stops being theory and becomes reality. That's where you see their heart. And that's where you'll see the truth. The people who can't give us anything in return are actually the ones who reveal everything. There are few words in the human language that expose character faster than the word no. We don't like hearing it. It cuts deep. It pushes against our desires, our plans, our sense of control. But how someone responds when they are told no reveals far more about them than how they act when life hands them a yes. Think about it. When everything is going our way, when doors are swinging wide open, when people are saying yes to our requests, our invitations, our ideas, it's easy to look patient, kind, gracious. That's the easy soil to stand in. But when someone sets a boundary, when someone says no, or when the opportunity we thought we deserved gets closed off, that's when our true nature steps out from behind the curtain. I've seen it in work, in relationships, in families. You tell someone no, and suddenly the mask slips. Do they respect your boundary, or do they push harder? Do they hear you, or do they guilt you into changing your mind? Do they take the no with humility, or do they react with anger, entitlement, or silence meant to punish? That response, that is the truth of their character. I remember years ago, a close friend asked me for something that, at the time, I couldn't give. It wasn't that I didn't care about her. It was simply beyond what I had the capacity for. So I told her, no, kindly, honestly. And I'll never forget what happened next. She looked at me, nodded, and said, "Thank you for being honest with me. I'd rather hear your truth than feel your resentment." That moment bonded us deeper than a forced yes ever could have. Her response revealed a maturity, a respect for boundaries, and an understanding that love doesn't always mean agreement. But I've also been on the other side of it. I've said no to people, and their response wasn't grace, it was manipulation. Maybe you've seen this too. You set a boundary and suddenly you're painted as the villain. You decline a request and someone says, "Wow, I thought you were different. I thought I could count on you." They weaponize guilt. They twist the no into a commentary on your loyalty, your love, or your worth. That doesn't come from a place of love. That comes from a place of control. When you pay attention to these moments, you realize that how someone handles is not just about the situation in front of them. It's about their relationship with power and respect. If they can honor your no, they are saying, "I see you as a whole human being. I respect your limits. But if they push past it, they are saying, my need outweighs your dignity. And that's not love. That's entitlement. And here's the hard truth sometimes. The way someone handles your no is a reflection of how they handle their own. People who refuse to accept no from others often struggle to say no themselves. They overcommit, overextend, and then project their resentment onto others. But people who have a healthy relationship with the word no know that it's not rejection, it's redirection. It's not abandonment, it's clarity. The word no is one of the most powerful tools for revealing not just character, but also integrity. Imagine this: you're in a relationship and you set a boundary. You say, I need more time for myself, or I can't say yes to that right now. If the other person respects that boundary, even when it inconveniences them, you've just seen a glimpse of real love. Because love that cannot coexist with boundaries isn't love, it's possession. On the flip side, look at leadership. A leader who can hear no without retaliation is a leader who creates safety. They make space for honest dialogue, for creativity, for truth. But a leader who punishes every no, who needs constant compliance, that's not leadership. That's control dressed up in authority. And the long-term cost of that is fear, resentment, and silence. The same is true in friendships. Have you ever noticed how some friendships crumble the first time you say no to an invitation? You can go out 100 times, you can say yes over and over, but the one time you say, I can't tonight, suddenly you're accused of not caring. That's not friendship. That's conditional belonging. And belonging that's conditional isn't belonging at all. Now, here's where it gets personal. I want to confess something. I haven't always handled no with grace either. There have been times when I've felt slighted, rejected, or even angry when someone told me no. I felt like their no was a reflection of my worth, like it meant I wasn't good enough or lovable enough. And here's what I had to learn. No isn't always about me. Sometimes it's about someone else's needs, their capacity, their truth. And when I learned to honor that, when I learned to respect their no instead of resenting it, my relationships got healthier. There's a certain kind of strength in hearing no and staying grounded. It says, I value your honesty more than I value my comfort. It says, I would rather you tell me the truth than give me a fake yes. Because a forced yes isn't generosity, it's resentment waiting to bloom. And I don't want love that grows out of resentment. I want love that grows out of freedom. So the next time you want to see someone's true character, pay attention when they're told no. Do they lash out, guilt trip, or go silent? Or do they listen, nod, and honor the boundary even if it disappoints them? Do they see the no as rejection? Or do they see it as an opportunity for honesty? At the end of the day, character isn't about how we behave when we get what we want. It's about how we behave when we don't. It's about whether we can hold disappointment without punishing someone else for it. It's about whether we can respect someone enough to let their no stand without trying to twist it into a yes. Because here's the deepest truth. Every no someone gives us is actually a gift. It's a gift of clarity, a gift of truth, a gift of authenticity. When someone says no, they're showing us their boundaries, their needs, their reality. And that's far more valuable than a fake yes that leaves everyone resentful. So, how do they respond when they're told no? That's where the mask slips. That's where character is revealed. And that's where we get to see not just what someone wants, but who they really are. Mistakes? Just hearing that word can make our stomach twist. Because mistakes remind us of our humanness, our imperfection, our vulnerability. And if you want to see the true depth of someone's character, pay close attention to how they handle mistakes. Not just their own, but the mistakes of others. Because mistakes are like mirrors. They reflect who we really are when perfection falls apart. Here's the truth: every single one of us will get it wrong. We'll say the wrong thing, hurt someone unintentionally, forget something important, make a choice we wish we could undo. Mistakes are part of being alive. They're not signs of weakness. They're signs that we're trying, we're risking, we're moving. But the way we respond to mistakes, that's the real story. I've seen people who, the moment they make a mistake, rush to hide it. They point the finger at someone else. They twist the story so the blame shifts away from them. Their first instinct is not honesty, but self-preservation. And that might protect their ego in the moment, but it erodes trust. Because if I can't count on you to own what's yours, then how can I count on you when it matters most? And then there are the people who handle mistakes with humility. They step forward and say, I messed up. That's on me. I'm sorry. No excuses, no shifting, no gaslighting, just the courage to own it. That moment, when someone is vulnerable enough to take responsibility, is one of the most powerful displays of character I've ever witnessed. Because it's not easy. Shame whispers in our ear, if you admit this, they'll think less of you. If you admit this, you'll lose respect. But the paradox is this: owning our mistakes actually builds more trust, not less. Because people don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be real. But it's not just about how we handle our own mistakes. True character is also revealed in how we handle the mistakes of others. When someone else stumbles, do we rush to shame them? Do we bring it up again and again like a weapon? Or do we extend grace, remembering that we've been there too? I once worked with a leader who, every time someone on their team made a mistake, would gather everyone together and humiliate them in front of the group. The message was clear: failure is unacceptable, and mistakes will be punished. Do you know what that did to the culture? It created silence. Nobody dared to take risks. Nobody dared to innovate. Everyone just played safe, small, and scared. That wasn't leadership. That was fear in disguise. But I've also seen the opposite. I've seen leaders who say, okay, we got it wrong. What can we learn? How do we grow? They don't ignore mistakes, but they don't weaponize them either. They transform mistakes into teachers. And that's the kind of space where people feel safe to stretch, to try, to create. Because they know failure won't end them, it will shape them. I think one of the deepest measures of character is whether someone can hold accountability and compassion in the same hand. Can they say, yes, this was wrong, and yes, I still see your worth? Too often we swing to extremes. We either excuse everything in the name of love, or we shame everything in the name of truth. But character is the ability to weave both together: truth and love, honesty and grace. And here's where it gets vulnerable for me. I don't always get this right. There have been moments when someone hurt me, and I held onto their mistake like a badge of honor. I replayed it, I weaponized it, I let it define them in my heart. Because somehow holding their mistake made me feel safer. Like if I kept reminding myself of their failure, I'd protect myself from being hurt again. But you know what that really did? It built walls. It kept me from seeing their growth, from forgiving, from moving forward. And on the other side, there have been times when I made a mistake, and instead of owning it, I tried to explain it away. I tried to soften it, excuse it, cover it. But every time I did that, the distance between me and the people I loved grew wider. It wasn't the mistake that broke trust. It was my refusal to be honest about it. That's the thing about mistakes. They are rarely the end of the story. What determines the story is what comes after. Do we shut down, deny, and deflect? Or do we open up, own it, and repair? That moment after the mistake, that's where character lives. And here's a question that cuts deep. When someone else makes a mistake, do we treat them the way we hope to be treated when we fail? Or do we hold them to a harsher standard than we hold ourselves? If we're honest, most of us want grace for ourselves and punishment for others. But real character shows up when we're willing to extend to others the same humanity we crave. I want you to think about someone in your life who handled a mistake with courage. Maybe it was a friend who hurt you and then came back, looked you in the eyes, and said, I'm sorry. I own this. Didn't that honesty, even though it hurt, create a deeper sense of trust than if they had pretended it didn't happen? That's the paradox. Mistakes don't destroy trust, denial does, and vulnerability heals it. And maybe there's someone in your life who has extended that kind of grace to you. Someone who saw your worst moment and chose to believe in your best self anyway. Hold that memory close. That's what character looks like when it's lived out loud. At the end of the day, mistakes are not about failure. They're about humanity. And the way someone responds to mistakes, their own and others, will tell you whether they're driven by shame or by love, by ego or by empathy, by fear or by courage. Because the truth is this: every mistake is a crossroads. It's a chance to hide or to heal, to shame or to support, to deny or to grow. And the choice someone makes in that moment is one of the clearest windows into who they really are. So, if you want to know someone's character, don't just watch them in their victories. Watch them in their failures. Notice how they speak when they've fallen, and how they speak when you have. That's where character lives. That's where humanity is revealed. And that's where we learn the kind of people we want to trust our hearts with. There's a saying that character is who we are when no one is watching. And the older I get, the more I realize how true that is. Because when the lights are on, when the crowd is clapping, when people are paying attention, it's easy to show up polished. It's easy to put on the smile, to play the role, to perform integrity. But when the room is empty, when there's no recognition, when no one will ever know, that's when we find out who someone really is. Think about it. Do they still pick up the trash when no one is around to thank them? Do they keep the promise when there's no applause at the end? Do they live the values they post on Instagram when the camera is off? Or are those values just decoration for the world to see? Because the truth is, character isn't built in public. It's revealed in private. I'll never forget something that happened years ago. A friend of mine worked in the back office of a large company. She wasn't in the spotlight, she wasn't high up, but she saw everything behind the scenes. And she once told me, "You can always tell who's real, because the people who treat you with respect when the doors are closed are the ones you can trust when the doors are open." What she meant was simple. Anyone can perform kindness in public, but it's in the quiet, unseen spaces that kindness becomes authentic. Integrity is like muscle memory. It shows up when no one is watching because it's been practiced in the dark. It's not something you turn on when the lights hit you. It's who you are day in and day out when the audience has gone home. And I think that's what scares us the most. Because deep down, we know the world may see our polished self, but we see the unpolished one. We know the shortcuts we've taken, the compromises we've made, the corners we've cut when no one was looking. And that's why shame thrives in secrecy. It knows the truth of who we are when no one is watching, and it whispers, "If they knew, they wouldn't love you." But here's the paradox. When our private lives align with our public values, shame loses its grip. Integrity is alignment. It's saying, who I am in the dark is not perfect, but it's honest. Who I am when no one's watching still reflects the values I claim to live by. And that doesn't mean never failing. It doesn't mean spotless perfection. It means showing up with honesty even when the only person keeping score is you. There's something sacred about those unseen moments. Think of a parent staying up late, folding laundry, packing lunches, doing all the things their kids won't even notice. Think of the volunteer who shows up early to set up chairs before an event, never expecting to be thanked. Think of the nurse quietly holding a trembling hand in the middle of the night, knowing there won't be any recognition. These are moments of invisible character. No cameras, no applause, just humanity at its purest. And if you want to know who someone truly is, watch the little things. Do they put the shopping cart back in the coral, even when the parking lot is empty? Do they drive kindly when there's no police officer around? Do they treat their partner or their children with love when nobody else is there to witness it? These small, hidden choices say more than grand speeches ever could. But I want to make this personal too. There have been seasons of my life where my public self and my private self were out of alignment. On stage, I was talking about courage, honesty, vulnerability. But behind closed doors, I was running from my own pain, snapping at the people I loved most, and living out of fear. And do you know what that did to me? It hollowed me out. Because there's nothing more exhausting than pretending in the light what you don't practice in the dark. The truth is, we can trick others for a while, but we can't trick ourselves. We know the gap between who we say we are and who we actually are. And that gap, that's where character either dies or grows. If we keep living in the gap, hiding, performing, pretending, our character erodes. But if we close the gap, if we start aligning our private choices with our public values, even in small ways, our character strengthens. I think that's why I'm so drawn to people who don't care much about recognition. The ones who live generously, Not because someone is watching, but because it's who they are. They don't need to broadcast their kindness, because kindness is already woven into their bones. They don't need to advertise their integrity, because it's just how they live. And honestly, those are the people I trust most, the ones whose quiet lives back up their loud words. But here's the hard part: it takes courage to live with integrity in the dark. Because the dark is where shortcuts tempt us. No one will know if we lie just a little. No one will see if we take the easy road instead of the honest one. No one will call us out if we treat someone poorly in private. But we will know. And that knowing, that's what builds or breaks us. So maybe the real measure of character is this: what would you do if no one ever found out? Would you still be kind? Would you still be honest? Would you still do the right thing, even without credit? Because that's when you discover whether your values are real convictions or just decorations. And let me be clear, it's not about perfection. You're going to have moments when who you are in private doesn't match who you want to be. We all do. But character isn't about never failing. It's about noticing the gap and doing the hard, humble work of closing it. It's about saying, I didn't live up to my values there. I want to do better. That's integrity too. The willingness to be honest about our flaws and to grow from them, even if nobody's clapping for the growth. So when you really want to know who someone is, don't just watch how they act when the spotlight is on. Ask yourself, who are they when the room empties out? Who are they when the applause dies down? Who are they when there's no credit to be given, no one to impress, no audience to perform for? Because that's where their character lives. And maybe the question we need to carry is not just, who are they when no one is watching? But who am I? Who am I when the door closes, when the lights turn off, when it's just me and my choices? Am I the same person I claim to be when others are watching? Do my small hidden actions align with the big words I say in public? Because at the end of the day, the person who knows the truth about your character isn't the crowd. It's you. You're the one who has to look in the mirror, who has to live with the choices no one else saw, who has to carry the weight of your integrity or the weight of your compromises. And the good news, it's never too late to close the gap. It's never too late to start living as if the unseen moments matter the most. Because they do. That's where character is formed. That's where the soul grows strong. And that's where the truest version of ourselves finally comes alive. If you want to know the truest, rawest measure of someone's character, don't look at how they treat strangers. Don't even look at how they treat the people they want to impress. Look at how they treat the people closest to them. The ones who see them unfiltered, the ones who love them without applause, the ones who know their flaws better than anyone else. That's where the truth shows up. Because it's easy to put on kindness when you're in public. It's easy to say the right things when you're being watched, or to be generous when you know someone will talk about it later. But behind closed doors, with the people we live with, love with, and argue with, that's where character is revealed. If you want to know who someone really is, ask the people who share a home with them, who eat meals with them, who catch them in their unguarded moments. The truth is, we often save our worst selves for the people who love us most. We come home exhausted, drained, stressed, and we snap at our partner or ignore our children. We give patience and politeness to strangers at work, but we offer irritation and criticism to the people who should matter most. Why? Because some part of us assumes that their love is secure. We believe they'll stay no matter how careless our words or how sharp our tone. But here's the paradox. The way we treat the people closest to us is shaping not just our relationships, but our legacy. I think of the father who is admired by his colleagues for his generosity, but whose children remember him as absent or harsh. I think of the leader celebrated on stage for her kindness, but whose partner carries the invisible bruises of her cruelty at home. Public praise means nothing if the people closest to us carry private wounds. I'll never forget a conversation I had with a friend who grew up in a home where her father was respected in the community. Everyone saw him as honorable, reliable, compassionate, but behind closed doors he was distant, dismissive, and critical. And she said to me, "I would have traded every bit of respect he got outside for 1 ounce of tenderness at home." That broke me because it reminded me that character isn't about what the crowd sees. It's about what the people who live in your shadow feel. On the other side, I think of people whose greatness doesn't make headlines but radiates through the quiet love they give their families. The mother who never raises her voice even when she's overwhelmed, who listens to her children with her whole heart. The partner who still chooses gentleness in disagreements, who holds respect even when frustration rises. The friend who shows up consistently, not for recognition, but because they care. These people may never trend on social media, but they carry the kind of character that outlives them in the hearts of those who knew them best. It's not about perfection. Nobody treats their loved ones flawlessly every day. We will all fail, we will all lose patience, we will all say things we wish we could take back. But character is about the pattern, not the exception. Do we come back and repair after we've broken something? Do we apologize? Do we show humility with the people closest to us? Because it's one thing to apologize to a stranger. It's another thing entirely to look your child, your spouse, your parent in the eye and say, "I was wrong. I hurt you. I'm sorry." That's vulnerability. That's courage. That's character. I've seen this in my own life. There were seasons when I poured so much energy into work, into being the best version of myself for the outside world, that when I came home, I had nothing left to give. My family got the scraps of my energy. They got the impatience, the exhaustion, the short answers. And one day it hit me, I don't want to be remembered for how well I spoke on a stage or how kind strangers thought I was. I want to be remembered for how I love the people who knew me best. That realization shook me awake. Because what's the point of inspiring the world if you wound your own family in the process? Here's another truth. The people closest to you are the ones who will tell the unfiltered story of your character when you're gone. Your coworkers may remember your accomplishments. Strangers may remember your words. But your family and your closest friends, they will remember how you made them feel day after day. Did you make them feel safe? Did you make them feel seen? Did you make them feel loved, even when you were tired, even when life was messy? That's the legacy of character. And it's not just about family. It's about how we treat the people closest to us in all areas of life. Our closest friends, are we showing up for them when they need us, or only when it's convenient? Our partners, are we practicing gratitude, or are we taking them for granted? Our coworkers, do we value them as people, not just as roles? Character isn't something we turn on and off. It's something that leaks out of us in every interaction, especially with the ones who share our lives most intimately. Here's the vulnerability. It takes courage to treat the people closest to us with the same gentleness we offer strangers. Because they see us raw, they see us messy. And it's tempting to believe they don't deserve the same level of care because they'll understand. But I think true strength is flipping that script and saying, because they're closest to me, they deserve the best of me. And sometimes, the people closest to us also carry the most power to trigger us, to hurt us, to expose our flaws. That's why how we respond to them is such a pure test of character. Do we retaliate when they wound us? Do we weaponize their vulnerability against them? Or do we choose love, patience, and forgiveness, even when it's hard? At the end of the day, the test of character is not the speeches you give, the image you project, or the accolades you collect. It's the daily, quiet, often unseen way you treat the people who know your unpolished self. It's how you talk to your partner when you're angry. It's how you respond to your child when they mess up. It's how you treat your parents when they disappoint you. It's the words, the tone, the choices that either build trust or break it. So if you want to see someone's true character, don't just ask how they treat strangers. Ask their family. Ask their closest friends. Ask the people who love them behind the curtain. Because those are the ones who hold the truest mirror. And when that mirror reflects patience, humility, and respect, that's when you know their character isn't just for show. And maybe the deeper invitation is this, to ask ourselves the same question. How do I treat the people closest to me? Do I save my best self for the world and give my worst self to the ones I love most? Or do I live in such a way that the people who know me best also respect me most? Because at the end of it all, It won't matter what the world thought of you if the people closest to you felt unloved, unseen, or unsafe. The truest legacy of character is written not in the headlines, but in the hearts of the people who sat at your table, who shared your life, who knew the sound of your unguarded laugh and the truth of your unfiltered flaws. And if they can say, "They love me well," then you've lived a life of character that mattered. So, if you want to see someone's true character, don't just listen to their words. Watch these 5 things. Notice how they treat the powerless, how they honor boundaries, how they respond to mistakes, how they act when unobserved, and how they treat their loved ones. Because at the end of the day, character isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about choosing courage over comfort, integrity over image, and love over ego again and again. And when you see that in someone, you're not just looking at their character. You're looking at their soul.